Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge.
Break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builder's Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Micheal Miller.
Let's sup from the mug of Java and build. Welcome to the World Builder's Anvil, episode 243. Today, the last word in Infinity War, part 2.
Welcome back, guys. Thanks for tuning into the World Builder's Anvil. Oh, I'm going to wait a minute. I'm going to take a little time. Jeff, in the prior episode, left me in limbo, in non-existence, annoyed at him because he wouldn't snap. Let's just take a second. Let's just enjoy the silence together without him. Okay.
Welcome back. As always, my name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
We already did that part, Jeff. We did that without you.
Oh. What episode are we on?
Episode 2 of the Infinity War.
Oh, I didn't know you had done a few without me. Okay, welcome back.
Enjoy the episode, guys. I'm just looking forward to Howard the Duck saving the day. That's what needs to happen.
It could go that way. That would be better than the original comic book finale. Because if you don't know, this is actually not the Infinity War from the comic books. This is the Infinity Gauntlet story.
Yeah, and the Infinity Gauntlet was the one that was out when
and it was the really good one.
Yeah, that was the one that I read as a teenager, and I was like, so when they first put out, because I was never a big fan of the Avengers. I was an X-Men guy. I was a Spider-Man guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Avengers were okay.
Well, once again, it's the same problem I had with the comic book version of the Avengers. Why is Hawkeye there?
My brother liked the Avengers, and by proxy, I had read some Avengers stories, and of course, when
just because of availability,
yeah. Right? And when he got the Infinity Gauntlet as a graphic novel, I had read it, but. And the movies, I think, are fantastic. Like, I love the Avengers in the movies. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But something you just said about the Infinity Gauntlet in the comic book, I was jumping all over it.
I was just saying that this is the Infinity Gauntlet story, not...
Oh, yeah. You were about to say how it ends. Not to be confused with the Infinity War, which is another...
which is what character wrestled the gauntlet away and ended up with the gauntlet when the Infinity Gauntlet ended. He's been shown, but I don't think he's going to play a part in the Infinity Gauntlet story.
Oh, you're saying he. I think I might be thinking of the Infinity War. At the end of the Infinity War, doesn't Gamora end up with doesn't Nebula end up with the
I forget with the end of Infinity War. But no, I'm talking about who got at the end of Infinity Gauntlet and undid it.
So should we do? All right.
I don't want to go to that one.
Well, do we want to even say that name, because that is a super spoiler? Like, it doesn't spoil this movie. It might spoil future stuff. It might,
but I don't think it will. I don't think that character will play a part, but I don't want to say it just in case I'm wrong and someone doesn't know the story.
Well, so that character shows up in one of the movies. They show that character.
He was at the end of one of the movies, and but we'll just leave it there.
Okay, and anyone who knows what we're talking about, they're going to go, oh yeah. And odds are, if you guys are this deep, some of you have probably looked it up. Like, I'm tempted to drop the name anyway, but we'll let this one go.
Yeah, we'll let this one go. So essentially...
So I was talking about proximity and power and my annoyance that occurred. All right, keep going.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now I might be a little off here on timing, but... the next major thing that I remember happening was Gamora going to get this Soul Stone with Thanos.
How awesome and what a great pull to have the Red Skull at guarding the Soul Stone. Because at the end of... that's one of the things that they've been so consistent and so good with is the callbacks. This is where I think they're super awesome at their world building, and not even their world building, but their storytelling. Like in Civil War, when Captain America is fighting Tony, there's a point at which, he's like, are you ever going to give up? And he's like, I could keep this up all day. And that's a throwback. That's a callback from the very first Captain America movie, like how many years ago? Yeah. And now here we are seeing the Red Skull. And if you remember, the Tesseract
what's powered?
The Tesseract is the which gem is that one?
Not time, not
space.
Space, you're right.
It's the space gem. So,
which is what they got off the Thor earlier.
So the Tesseract has a thing occur at the end of that movie, and the Red Skull vanishes. You watch the movie, you assume he dies, but it's just literally put him out into space for some reason to guard the Soul Gem, which I don't quite get, but okay.
It wasn't even to guard it. It was just to lead people to it and give them the warning.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's kind of funny because he's just, like, stuck there.
and this probably, for me, was probably the most powerful scene just because it had a little bit more time behind it.
Absolutely.
Because that's one of my other issues, too, was Thanos was never correctly developed as a character. So they tried very quickly ham-fist Thanos' character ability into the story.
Well, see, I would say that
way too much happened, way too many moving parts for one movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, but see, I would argue that I think they did a good job.
They did a pretty good job of it because I believed it. I knew before he started to cry that she was dead.
But I believed the cry. Is my point. Is like,
almost definitely.
Didn't seem insincere. It seemed very genuine.
And the Soul Stone knew it, right? He couldn't have got the Soul Stone.
He couldn't have got it. Mm-hmm. He was so committed. He's so committed to what he's doing. See, if you guys aren't familiar with the comic book, the difference is, and this is a very contentious point, is, okay, if he gets all the stones, he's got infinite power. Why can't he just snap his fingers and make infinite resources instead of killing half the universe? Which is a big argument I have also. Now, in the comic...
I'll explain why.
And we can get into why, and I know we both have arguable reasons why. But in the comic book, his motivations for doing it are different. In the comic book, if you go back to the first Avengers movie at the very end, when they in the post-credit sequence where they show Thanos for the very first time, his henchman says to him, to go after Earth's heroes is to court death. And Thanos looks over his shoulder and grins. Now, the reason he does this is in the comic books, he was quite literally courting death. Death is a figure. It is a female figure in the Marvel Universe. It's a woman, and he is in love with her. So he falls out of favor with death, and he figures to get back in her favor, he'll kill half the universe for her. That's where some of his depth comes from in the comic book, and also drives his motivation for gathering the Infinity Stones. Like, how can I destroy half the universe to gain the affections of the woman I love? I need to systematically find them all, gather them all, create a super weapon where they can all be harnessed, and I will destroy half this universe for her. That's a motivation. In the movies, it's obviously completely different. He's all talking about balance and killing half the universe randomly, and that's fair. That's fair. As opposed to, say, not even creating the resources, but the resources are out there. Maybe just move them from point A to point B so they get to the people that need them, or transport the overpopulated planetary populations to planets that are underpopulated. You know what I mean? Like, there's many other ways. I would argue
at this point it was too late for him to be able to do that, because he had to completely buy into the notion, and this does move ahead a little bit the story, but
specifically at the point of the Soul Stone, or
not the point of the Soul Stone, but for destroying half the universe, he had to do it, and he couldn't have done the infinite growth because he did it to his own planet, and it was that same insanity which he had to completely buy into to be able to do it, which would never. Mentally, he could never let go of that to be able to do something different now, or else why didn't he just get the gems back then and save his people instead of kill half of them? So I think once he crossed the line back then, he had to come here. He had to do this.
You think his hat was over the fence, so to speak?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the reason why no other notion would come to him, because that was the only way to save his planet, which they didn't listen to him, and it died off completely. So because of all of that loss is internalized into his character now, he has to do it for the universe to save the universe, so it doesn't end up like his planet.
I think we said something. I think we said there was some other part already. I think we may have said, "Oh, this was probably the best part or best loss in the movie." I forget what we were referring to, but
Gamora being chucked.
Well, I was about to say Gamora being chucked is definitely, in my opinion, was the big. Well, actually, I got one other one that I really.
Well, there's one later on that
we'll get to it.
Shocked me and really caught me. So
him killing Gamora, super big. From that point, what's the next big set piece?
The next big set piece is the coming together of the Guardians. Well, first it's on the planet or on the spaceship where Iron Man and Spider-Man save Doctor Strange.
Yep. Which I had my issues with him dealing with the torture because I was like, okay, I'm sure it totally sucks, but the man allowed himself to be killed how many times by Dormammu? Mm-hmm. Like, he saved the universe there, or at least Earth. I don't remember if it was the Earth was, or if it was just the Earth at stake, or if it was also the universe at stake. Definitely Earth was at stake. And for the sake of the world, he allowed himself to be killed over and over and over and over again. Some of them were very, very painful. Some of them were not quick. A lot of them were quick. That's what they showed us.
Well, and before that, he had every bone in his body broken, I believe.
Yeah, he's been through some serious pain, and you might be able to argue that he saw it coming, that he knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, but the thing is, he didn't really give up any information either. Or the Soul Stone.
Fair enough.
He was willingly being tortured, probably because he wanted to go to the end game, to the next stage. But they didn't really explicitly say that, so I think it's a fair argument. But I think he didn't really give anything up, and that would have been the bigger shocking thing is if he would have given it up without a reason. Okay.
How awesome for what's the name of the kid who plays Spider-Man? His name is also Tom. Hang on. What is it?
Oh my goodness! You're asking me names. You are desperate.
No, I couldn't remember the name of the movie we were talking about. Actually, I was like, I'm going Avengers. I'm like, it's not Avengers. It's Infinity War.
It's Avengers 3. It's Avengers 3.
Avengers 3.
It is. Infinity War is Avengers 3.
It is. I know. I'm trying to load it so that we get to Spider-Man. It's his name, Tom Holland. It didn't load. I'd like the record to show that I remembered that before this loaded. So how awesome for Tom Holland to be able to bounce back and forth for a lot of time with Robert Downey Jr. and Benedict Cumberbatch. Two absolute seasoned professionals who are masters of their craft and currently top of their game. And he gets to play around with them on camera a lot. And hold his own.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great opportunity for him. I mean, I think he does a great job as a young Peter Parker.
Best Spider-Man ever. Best Spider-Man.
Well, at least in the movie or TV film. The original one from the 70s was pretty good.
Best live-action Spider-Man yet. That's what I'm going to say.
I'd argue that one back in the 70s was
Shut up. Are you going to say the Captain America in the 70s was the way to go?
That was really good too.
Okay, fair enough.
The MCU was much better back in the 70s.
Oh yeah, we might as well get into what was it, the late 80s or early 90s Fantastic Four that was never actually put out.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
You did? Oh, yeah.
But I hate Fantastic Four. To me, they were more boring than the Avengers, which in the comics I thought were boring.
Sony was going to lose the rights to those characters, so they had to make a movie to maintain their licensing rights. So they slammed together this horrible movie, and you can find pieces. I don't know if you can find the full movie. I don't know if they ever did release it. They may have released it, but they definitely made it. And
you really talk about something I have no care about at all.
All right, fair enough. Well, moving on.
They put Jessica Alba in there, in which case I'd watch it just for Jessica Alba, but I still wouldn't like it.
I was at a New York Comic-Con when she was there for Fantastic Four, when the first movie came out. Before the first movie released, they were doing promotion. Actually, if you want to get nitpicky, it was not the New York Comic-Con. It was some sort of video game convention at the Jacob Javits Center. But she was there, and a few other people were there, and I totally wanted to like go see her, and you couldn't get. There was such a crowd, you couldn't get near her. So
yeah, I could believe that, especially before it released.
Before it released. So the next part that I want to talk about, and you tell me if I'm jumping the gun here, is when those characters, i.e. the Guardians and Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, fight Thanos on that little rock or planet, wherever the heck that is.
There's the one quick thing of the weapon gathering before that. They go to the sun, and
are you talking about the Thor?
Thor getting was a Stormbringer, the axe.
Stormbreaker.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not a fan of it.
It
made sense for the movie, and I got it. But
do you know what Stormbreaker
Thor without a hammer
is?
To me doesn't count.
Do you know what Stormbreaker is?
It's a freaking axe.
Okay. Here's the story behind Stormbreaker. Stormbreaker is the weapon of Beta Ray Bill. So, Beta Ray Bill was an alien warrior, super powerful and true.
Was that the horse dude?
Yes. He's not a horse dude, but yes. That's what he looks like. Dude. You take he's got a smoothed back head. He's a
horse dude. You can say whatever you want. He's a horse.
You can actually see his visage in Ragnarok when Thor goes to the arena. On the building, it's got all the different heads of great warriors. Beta Ray Bill's head is there.
Okay.
So Beta Ray Bill ends up in a fight with Thor. True of heart, just like Thor, he is worthy. He is able to pick up Thor's hammer. And Odin was like, oh my gosh, this, someone basically made them fight to the death, and it's like whoever loses has got to kill. And Beta Ray Bill would not kill Thor because he's like, this guy's a noble warrior, he's a good guy, I don't have to kill him, whatever. Odin comes along, and he asks the dwarves to make, either he makes it or he asks the dwarves to make Beta Ray Bill an equivalent weapon, and that is where Stormbreaker comes to be.
Okay.
So Stormbreaker is Beta Ray Bill's hammer. It is not a replacement for Thor's. It's a secondary weapon. Beta Ray Bill's one of the few people. I mean, granted, if you want to go through the entirety of the Marvel universe, there's actually been 20 some odd people who've been able to lift Thor's hammer. It's not quite as rare as they make it out to be. There have been several in
the movies, actually.
I was about to say it's not quite as rare as they make it in the movies, but there have been a bunch. And so it bothers me a little bit that they changed the way Stormbreaker works, and that it's not a Beta Ray Bill. I would have preferred they made Thor a new hammer that wasn't Stormbreaker, but I also kind of got to give him a little props for putting Stormbreaker in.
But for me, Thor without a hammer just it don't work for me.
Yeah.
But there's that. I thought they picked a perfect character to be the giant dwarf, and I loved that the dwarfs were giant.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I mean, who else are you going to use?
Yeah, I don't know. And he did a fabulous job. It was a fun scene.
Always does.
Not really much to talk about there, I don't think.
No, I think they took a sequence that otherwise could have been very superfluous.
A-team montage.
Yeah, and they made it. They gave it some weight and gravitas that it otherwise, not a lot of people I think would have put a lot into. Oh well, Thor goes and gets a new weapon.
Okay, gets a new weapon.
Like they could have made it exactly what you say. They show him hammering something out real quick cuts, and then Thor lifting it, and boom, we're back to the action. But they made a whole sequence out of it, and it was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So then we get to Spider-Man and everybody and the Guardians. Now?
Well, essentially, it's the final sequence. So you have two simultaneous things happening. You have Thanos arriving back to his home planet, where the Guardians have arrived and met up with Iron Man and their group, and they're going to ambush and get the gauntlet off of Thanos. And then back on Earth, his massive army starts to arrive to invade Wakanda to extract the Mind Stone from Vision.
Now, I know if you're like me, dear listeners, you have read 47,000 articles on the Infinity War and the stuff that I'm about to say. But I would let the record show that I had these ideas right after watching the movie when they go to trap Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
It's Star-Lord's plan. It's his plan. He's the one that wants to execute the plan.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that wants to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go into the first Guardians movie, and Drax messes things up with calling Ronan in.
Mm-hmm.
And Star-Lord's the one who said, "You couldn't wait? You called Ronan? You called him? Like, we know your family's dead, but like, what the heck, man? We're trying to stop him the right way, you know?" So now he is in almost the exact same scenario as Drax was. And it's his plan, and he's telling everybody their plan, you know, he's like, "Oh, that plan's stupid, let's do it my way, blah, 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 blah."
Yeah, which is also a generic recurring theme in Guardians.
Right. And in the moment, like literally, they almost have the gauntlet off.
Mm-hmm.
All he's got to do is keep it together for like 2 more seconds, and then they could pound Thanos into oblivion. But no, he breaks him out of it because he finds out Gamora's dead. And I had such issue with that. I was like, this is so stupid. I was like, I know he's angry. I know he's passionate. I know he's an impulsive character.
Mm-hmm.
But still, there's bigger things at stake. You literally need to wait like a second. Like Spider-Man had it almost all the way off his hand.
But he wasn't watching Spider-Man. He did not know how close it was to coming off.
I know, but I still have major issues with it.
He's an impulsive, emotional character. I think that was within character.
I'm not hearing it.
And even if he had a plan, we all know the reason why it happened the way it did, because this is what Doctor Strange set up. He saw the only path to victory out of 14 million. Everything that happened in that scene was to that plan. And no matter whose idea it was.
If you guys haven't done it yet, or if you haven't discovered it yet, go to YouTube and look up Hishe. How, Hishe, how it should have ended. It is an animation series, and they do every great movie that ever is. So all the great action movies, sci-fi movies, really cool movies that you love and you watch, the Hishe folks do these animations about how the movie should have ended. Like, this was dumb, it should have ended this way. And they're so funny and so clever, and they do all of the superhero movies.
Of course, so they all could use it, yep.
And they do a bit with the Doctor Strange where he does the thing where he's shaking his head and he's moving through time, and he's looking at everything and he's like, I've looked at it and there's like 14 million possible outcomes. And they're like, and is there anywhere we win? And he's like, there's 3. And then they show you 3 ways that it should have gone, how it should have ended with them winning.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. But
I argue, in all of them, that the only one that they won in was one where he snapped his fingers.
Yeah, and here's the thing that I only saw in one article. I had this idea immediately, but I've only since seen it in one article, and I didn't see it in any other posts or videos or anything until like 2 or 3 months after the movie. Everyone's like, oh, well, things had to be that way, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, how come he said if it was a matter of choosing between the stone and their lives, that he would not give up the stone, he'd allow them to die, blah, blah, blah.
Yes, and he would have.
And he would have. And here's the very key thing that no one caught, and nobody, or at least nobody voiced it until, like I said, I have since read one article that picked up on this, and I picked up on it immediately while watching it. He does not try to save everyone himself or Spider-Man. He only focuses and gives up the stone when Thanos threatens to kill Tony Stark. So he knows that Tony Stark, at the very least, needs to live.
Which I think we all know Tony is instrumental in undoing this.
Yeah.
And I agree with you completely. Because everyone else, whatever. But, and the thing was, he needed Tony to survive, and it makes sense too because Iron Man made the MCU.
Oh yeah, I mean the entirety of the Marvel Cinematic Universe rests on the shoulders of Robert Downey Jr. Or rather, he is the foundation that it was all built upon.
And has his character will exit, it has to be big, and so the win here is going to come through him. I'm pretty certain.
I'm not going to say that. I don't think I agree with you. I don't think the win is going to come directly from him. I think he's
maybe not directly.
I think that he has to be a big link in the chain.
Sacrifice.
It has to be a bit. He has to be a big link in the chain to get to the win.
He will be, because what will happen is he's going to somehow absorb some knowledge from probably the cloak, and he's going to be Doctor Strange, Iron Man, McBadass. And then I'm telling you, that's where they're going to head, and he'll have to sacrifice himself along the way to undo everything. That's just my thoughts on it.
Maybe. I mean, he's going to die, and I honestly thought he was going to die in this movie. I really did, and they teased us with it. I mean, he got impaled. He should have died. Especially since Robert Downey Jr.'s contract is going to be up, and he has basically said, look, I'm about done being this guy, Unlike Chris Hemsworth, whose contract also ends with Avengers 4, but he has said that if they wanted to do a Thor 4, he'd be down, because Ragnarok reinvigorated the character so much, and he had such a good time with it. He
really enjoyed it, yeah.
Yes.
And you see, he built off of that in this movie.
And I don't know if I mentioned it in a prior show. I may have. But you can credit and thank Kevin Smith for the influence of what Ragnarok became, because Kevin Smith on one of his shows was talking about what Thor should be or what they should do in the next one. Because let's not forget Dark World. It's hard to remember Dark World. I barely remember the plot or anything that occurs in that movie.
I remember it being dark.
It wasn't very good.
No, it wasn't.
Well, Kevin Smith had a whole lot to say about that. Chris Hemsworth heard that show. And he went to the producers and everybody. He's like, let's strip it all away, take away everything that we know that is Thor, and make it fun, and make it fun like the Guardians. Let's do something different and better. So what they do in Ragnarok, they took away his hammer, they took away his hair, like all the things that you immediately attach. This is Thor. They removed. They switched things up, and that movie was so much fun and so good. They lightened the character more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like while the first Thor had a lot of laughs in it.
Yes, Bunny.
The first Thor had a lot of laughs in it, but it had a lot of laughs in it at the expense of Thor because he took himself so seriously.
Which is actually a traditional approach to the character in the comics.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't argue that. But the humor in Ragnarok was because Thor was not taking himself seriously.
Yeah.
And not taking scenarios seriously. Like when Valkyrie runs into him in the market and she's like, "What are you wearing?" He's like, "It's a disguise." She's like, "I can see your face." He's like, "Well, not when I go like this," and he covers his face up. You know what I mean? Like he literally has jokes. He's got punchlines and quips.
Yep. No. I liked the first one. It was obviously heavily Shakespearean influenced.
Absolutely.
Probably the director was involved in that, which is funny. They fired him, but then they hired him as an actor, so that's fair enough. But yeah, no. I mean, I think that went into place. I think it was specifically Iron Man he needed, because Iron Man was the key. And whether it's through a sacrifice he will make in the next movie, which is what I'm assuming, because I expected him to die at the end of this movie. I expected him to go away with the snap.
Yeah.
But thinking back to what you're saying, that plays in with what I'm already thinking, which is Iron Man is pivotal, in the next movie. I do think the cloak and Iron Man, and I don't know how magical it'll be, but he will have the cloak with him, and it will be pretty cool.
And they obviously, I'm trying to think. They stayed there. They never made it back to Earth at that point.
They were recovering from getting their butt kicked, but you figure at that point the pace was so fast where Thanos literally steps out into Wakanda, and oh boy, Endgame is on.
I'm trying to think, like, don't you think Strange could have portaled them to Earth at that point?
No. I don't think it mattered.
I'm just from a world builder standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint. Could he have?
I think he had. If anyone had the ability to, he did, but I don't think he would have because it didn't matter.
Okay. Or maybe he figured, okay, we need to stay here for this to go down the way I saw it.
Yes, because exactly. That's. I think he had everything planned, and he allowed the plan to happen. Because he knew it was the only way to get them to the ultimate victory, which would be painful, which would include his death.
Because I'm trying to think. Did the Guardians go to Earth? They were on Earth, right?
They've been to Earth. I think was the second one? I think it was the second one they went to Earth.
No. I'm saying at the end of Infinity War, they were on Earth, right? They were on the other planet?
They were on the other planet.
Okay.
No. We'll get to that in a second, where they ended up.
Okay.
Some of them were on Earth.
Yeah. I remember Groot being on... Well, okay, because Groot was with Thor, and Groot and Rocket were with Thor.
Groot and Rabbit.
Okay.
And Thor show up as Wakanda's getting its ass handed.
That's why I was confused, because I knew that Groot and Rocket were on Earth, and that's why I was like, wait a minute, did all the Guardians go to Earth? No, they did not. Just Groot and Rocket.
Join us next time for the exciting conclusion and some world builder warnings about the Infinity War. Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.garduel.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.